Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another Spooked Saturday video. This is the second installment in my Spooky October series. If you guys missed last week's episode, it was an OG serial killer case on H.H. Holmes, and I had a lot of fun doing it and got some pretty positive feedback, so I'm really excited for this week's video. Just to kind of freshen you guys up, there will be 5 spooky videos, one every Saturday for the month of October, all ending on Halloween. And they're going to consist of my OG serial killer case and urban legend, which is today, and then we're also going to cover a true crime, a missing person, and finally we're going to do a super special video all about Halloween. So I'm really excited. Let me know what you guys think about this series and if you would like me to continue it outside of the month of October. It's something that's always fascinated me and I have so many ideas. So we're gonna get into the story for today's case. So I had a lot of fun picking and deciding between this case. I'm honestly still conflicted up until this moment, but I settled on the story of the Black-Eyed Children, which I'm so excited to talk to you guys about today. The other one that I was really debating between was El Chupacabra, which is Latin folklore, and it is something I'm probably more familiar with if we're gonna be honest. I grew up hearing about it, and it's pretty much on the same playing field as, I'd say, like Bigfoot, but that's probably going to be for another video, hopefully in the future. I would love to cover it. It's always just been something that fascinated me, and especially with Puerto Rican history, it is pretty prevalent. But today is for the Black-Eyed Children, and I'm really excited. So the story of the Black-Eyed Children falls under the category of urban legends, which is kind of amongst the things of like Bigfoot, Slenderman, the Yeti. It's things that haven't been proven true or haven't been proven false. So it's just kind of like stories with not too much to it. There are just people's accounts really for evidence. So it will be up to you guys to decide whether this one is true or not. So the story and urban legend following the Black-Eyed Children is actually pretty recent. It dates back to about the 1980s, so it's not too long ago that we're talking about, but we're just going to give a little bit of context. So the Black-Eyed Children were described as very pale children between the ages of like 5 to 16, and they had pale skin and completely black eyes. And these children were told in various accounts of coming up to people's homes and knocking at really late, weird hours of the night. And these children would basically try and guilt trip you and convince you to let you inside of your house. And many people reported that if these Black-Eyed Children did come into their house, bad things started happening to them or their family members. So that's just a little bit for you. We're gonna continue to get into them and then a couple of stories. So the first dated encounter I could see that had some evidence to it was going back to 1996, and this was regarding Brian Bethel, and he had written that he had 2 accounts with Black-Eyed Children. Now Bethel states that he encountered 2 Black-Eyed Children in Texas in 1996, and that he told the story of another unrelated person that had also had an encounter with Black-Eyed Children in Oregon. But the running theme I've kind of seen with a lot of these cases is that the people who are reporting having seen Black-Eyed Children, they are their primary source. So the people who are saying this is you know, what happened and this is where I got this information from, they're the source. They're the ones who are saying, well, I saw them, this was what happened. So it definitely leaves a little bit of room for questioning. Now a lot of these stories are very much tied and related into creepypasta, which I believe is a forum off of Reddit, and it has just a ton of creepy stories relating to urban legends, especially stuff related around the paranormal, like the Black-Eyed Children or the Men in Black or Slender Man, stuff like that. So there are tons and tons of cases or different accounts of people saying that they have encountered the Black-Eyed Children. You can actually go on Reddit and there are multiple forums about the Black-Eyed Kids or the Black-Eyed Children on Reddit, and you can go and pull up their accounts. So I am going to be reading a couple later on from that, but we're going to continue on with some of the major accounts. So after that, the legend just kind of unfolds, and it follows as people, like I said, being home late at night and these children are knocking on people's doors, and they're typically like guilt tripping them, trying to get the owners to invite them in, because that is a catch with these Black-Eyed Children. They cannot come into your house uninvited. They have to be welcomed into the home. And there aren't much clarification on what happens after the Black-Eyed Children get invited into these homes. They're very adamant though about wanting to be welcomed into the home, and that they can't give them any information. They can't tell these people who they're knocking on their doors their name. They won't give them any information on their parents' name so that the homeowners can like call somebody to get these kids help. And once they come in, there were various accounts saying that they felt really, really sick, had this kind of sense of dread come over them. People would get nosebleeds, just feel awful. And there were other accounts that said after horrible things started happening to people's families, they would get really sick and hospitalized or even come up with cancer. And there were other cases where there were even just weird accidents and occurrences happening around these visitations of the Black-Eyed Children. So it's super weird and interesting to think about. But a lot of people have these ideas that the Black-Eyed Children are paranormal or mystical beings, that they are able to mess with people's minds and their health and wellness, in a sense where they can make people get physically ill or have things happen to them or make them feel like things are happening to them, which is all very, like I said, it's really, really creepy and kind of interesting to think about. But that was pretty much the similarity among a lot of these cases. I'm gonna read a couple of the accounts off of Reddit that were super duper popular because they're just really fascinating. So the first one is a tale of Black-Eyed Children in Alabama, and I'm gonna kind of skim read through this paragraph for you guys so that we can kind of go through it a little bit quicker. But the person accounts that it was around 2:30 a.m. and their dog went to the door acting like he had to go out. He started to get up and the dog started growling at the door. He'd never growled, and the other dog started trembling and whining, and she's only a year old. Needless to say, it unnerved me, and I was already reading about creepy stuff, so I got quite freaked out. All the lights in my house were turned off and the curtains were drawn. I don't have a peephole, so I'll just peek through the blinds on the window behind me that overlooked the porch. There were two boys standing there. One looked to be around maybe 5. He was pretty little, and the other about 10. They had their heads down and were wearing winter clothes, heavy jackets. I thought that was weird because it was summer then, and they both turned to look at me. I didn't have a bulb in my porch light, so I couldn't see their faces directly at the window. It freaked me out even more. I had heard that if you knew about them, then they would visit you, and I just kept trying to convince myself that these were some young kids playing a prank or something. The older one asked, "Ma'am, can you let us in? It's really cold out here and my brother is hungry." I didn't move and I didn't reply because I was immediately alarmed that they had known I was a ma'am. I just sat there on my couch. I felt this overwhelming sensation of dread and knew if I opened the door, something awful would happen. I suppressed it as best as I could and ignored them anyway. The same voice said, "Ma'am, please let us in. I saw you through the window. I know you're there. It'll only take a moment." Then after a few seconds of silence, the pounding started on my window and I heard the same voice again. "Let us in, please. It's cold and we have to call our mom. She'll be worried if we don't call her." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was almost in tears. I was so freaked out. There was no way I was going to answer that door. Here is another account, and this one is from Ireland. On this particular day, I was walking a path to a specific tree that was my favorite to sit beneath. There was a gentle breeze, and it was very comforting, and then it all stopped. Everything became unnaturally still. The air was still, the birds stopped twittering, and I no longer heard a single thing. At this point, I became very anxious, and I wanted to head home. At first, I saw a movement from the corner of my eye, nothing else. I couldn't pinpoint, but a dark shape was there. Everything else was in that eerie calm. When I reached my home, I ran inside and slammed the door, fully expecting my mom to yell at me for slamming, but she wasn't there. In fact, nobody was home. That was a bit odd, but not unheard of. Finally gaining some sanity, I decided I needed tea now, so I began to boil water for tea, and then there was a knock at the door. I jumped. Nobody knocked in these parts. It was a small village where everyone knew everyone else. Everyone was family. There was no knocking. There was a friendly oi there, and then people came in, so a knock was strange. I crept over to the glass in the door and peeped out. I noticed two things right away that terrified and confused me. The first was a child, a girl of maybe 10 or 12, looking not at me but at her feet. The second thing that scared me to my toes. It was getting dark. How is that possible? I had left to go on my walk at midday. The sun had been fully out, and I had been gone no longer than 40 minutes. How was it dark? I looked at the clock. It was almost 7. 5 misplaced hours had gone back. The knock came again at the door, and I jumped. I asked, "Can I help you?" The girl didn't look up and said, "I need to come in. Please let me in." She didn't have an accent. She wasn't Irish. There was no lilt to her voice. She sounded American. I called out again, "I can't let you in, but I'll ring someone if you need help." She didn't look up. She said, "No, that won't work. I need to come in." At this point, I had enough of the strange, scary child freaking me out. As any teenage girl would do, I screamed and ran to my bed. I covered myself and waited for my mom to come home. The girl was still knocking on the door, but never moved to a window or to the back door. She stayed at the front door. After a while, I got up my nerve to go check again. It had been silent for a while. The girl was still there, but she was no longer at the door. She was sitting on the fence. She was no longer looking down. She was looking right at me, and in the fading light, it looked like her eyes were pitch black. So that was just another account, and you can go through on Reddit forums and creepypasta and honestly just type in black-eyed children and you can read thousands of various accounts that are all pretty similar, if I'm gonna say so myself. They all kind of follow along the same lines of it being pretty late at night and dark, and these children coming up to people's doors asking to come in and not giving them very many descriptions. So it's definitely really creepy. I have seen a couple where they address you by like coming up to you in your car and asking if I can get a ride from you, and like the same type of things, like won't give you much information besides, "Hey, can I have a ride?" So definitely really creepy, and it's also been stated that they won't bother you if you don't know about them. So if you're watching this video, you're not in the clear anymore. But we're going to talk about a couple things that I just wanted to address that a lot of people have either tried to debunk or explain the story of the black-eyed children with. And the first two are contacts and a condition that could be explaining these black-eyed children. The first of which being sclera eye contacts, and I'll put in a picture of what like marketed sclera eye contacts look like, and they are a contact that like is pretty large and difficult to get into your eyeball, but it covers the entirety of your eye with like a black film. So it's really, really creepy, and they're quite painful, I've heard, and really difficult to get in and out, and you can only wear them for a certain period of time because it affects with your pupils dilating, I'm pretty sure. But they are available for anybody to purchase sclera eye contacts, so I definitely think that that could be a thing. You got to take into account a lot of these stories started rising up in like the late 90s, so I'm not too sure when colored contacts became really popular, but it definitely could explain it. The next is a condition called mydriasis, I believe, and it is an extreme dilation of the pupils, which could also explain for why so much of the eyes of these children are appearing black or really dark in the night. So that's also something to take into account, and those are more of the debunking route. There are a lot of people who feed into this and say that they believe the black-eyed children are an alien entity of some sort, and like I said, that they have mystical powers or beings. And the other thing I wanted to address was a YouTuber by the name of Fantastic Daily, and this is actually how I heard of the black-eyed children, and this kind of spiked a couple years ago and was really popular and made a lot of people, I think, bring black-eyed children to their radar. Essentially, this guy on the Fantastic Daily page was obsessed with black-eyed children and kind of made it his life's mission to find and document and like capture a black-eyed child, which I don't quite understand, but he made various videos and claims about the black-eyed children, saying again that he had seen them or interacted with them, and of course his only sources were himself. And the other video he posted was of the black-eyed children being arrested, the first ever black-eyed children being arrested and booked, which kind of weirded me out, because if they were some alien entity of some sorts or like a paranormal being, like how are you gonna catch a black-eyed child? I feel like that'd be catching like Slenderman or like Bigfoot. I feel like it would just be very improbable. So it was a story of 2 black-eyed children being booked, but all of the articles that come up is only one person, and it is a girl who does not look under the description that the black-eyed children are, like appearance wise. Like I said, completely black eyes, very pale, and they're typically like looking down and have like really old like bed clothes or like winter clothes on, are a lot of what the story is documented, which again is kind of weird. So the person photographed in the arrest photo doesn't look like that at all. Her skin complexion is much darker than that of the black-eyed children, and it just looks like it could have been very easily photoshopped. But essentially how he ran the story and tells what happened with these black-eyed children is that when they were booked and brought into the jail, everyone around their cell started getting really sick, so they had to remove and relocate these 2 black-eyed children. And among transit, there was an accident or an incident that occurred, and the black-eyed children escaped. And he has video footage and documentation of what went on, but a lot of it just seems a little too coincidental. I feel like everything could have been explained in a different way. I don't think that that photo is as authentic, and if it was, if there were 2 children who were booked, why do we only see one's photo? All of it just kind of seemed a little weird, especially for somebody who was so obsessed with the black-eyed children. So that is something that's really all I have for you guys in today's video. So it was a little bit shorter, a little bit not as factual and concise because it is an urban legend, but that's what I kind of like about urban legends and folklore. It kind of leaves it up to interpretation a little bit. There's not any specifics really. So that is going to be it for today's Spooked Saturday video. I really hope you guys did enjoy it. I love making these videos. Again, if you do enjoy the urban legend folklore content, let me know. I would love nothing more than to cover a couple more cases. I really want to cover the Men in Black. I think it would also be fun to maybe do Slenderman, and then of course I want to do a couple of Latin folklore. I was gonna do El Cuckoo, or like, I know in other Spanish speaking countries they pronounce it cucuy, but in Puerto Rico it's pronounced coco, and it's the boogeyman, and that's definitely something my grandparents used to scare me a lot with, me and all my cousins. If we didn't go to bed on time or if we were out in the dark, he would get us. So that would be a lot of fun. My Spanish is not perfect, so I definitely don't like to emphasize on it, but it is something that I grew up with. But El Chupacabra is definitely one that I've been wanting to cover for a really long time, and it's always something that fascinates me so much, and I never see that many concise, consolidated videos on it. So if that is something you guys would be interested in, leave a comment down below. I would love to interact with you guys down there, and definitely do any videos for Spook Saturdays that you guys have requests on. So like I said, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys are having a great and spooky October, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.